So overall, it seems assessment of ICT is challenging. Ofsted recently found that often teachers had little understanding of what was required for a pupil to reach a certain level. In several schools, no assessment of what pupils had achieved in ICT took place at all. In many schools, performance in ICT was only assessed in specific ICT classes. This meant that pupils' considerable use of ICT in other subjects was not monitored or built into planned development. Personally, I can appreciate these challenges of assessment. It can be hard for teachers to judge pupils' knowledge and understanding based on the outcomes of practical tasks alone. Additionally, if the teaching of computing is embedded in other subjects, it's often difficult to separate attainment in computing from that in the host subject. And like in any subject, if pupils work collaboratively, it can be hard to identify each individual's contribution. And so, it was claimed by an expert panel in 2011 that the current method of levels actually might inhibit the overall performance of our system and undermine learning. The recommendation was that all assessments should bring people back to the content of the curriculum instead of focusing on the perception of levels. And so, in order to ensure that every child can master this content, Michael Gove, the Education Minister, decided that the current system of levels and level descriptors should be removed and not replaced. Subsequently, by the end of each key stage, pupils are now expected to know, apply and understand the matters, skills and processes specified in the relevant programmes of study. This means there are now a series of can-do style statements. This can be seen as both an opportunity and a challenge. Whilst the removal of levels to the introduction of these can-do style statements might mean more flexibility in what is taught and how, an expression like notable impact is subjective and open to interpretation and thus debate. Since schools will each use their own approaches to summative assessment, perhaps the most obvious way is to address this to adopt an entirely criteria-based approach to assessment. Teachers can judge whether each child has learnt the content of the programme of studying by checking children's work against the curriculum and ticking off the can-do statements. We likened this to receiving badges whilst as scouts or guides, or even like the progressive system in place throughout the gaming world, where achievements unlock future tasks. However, the consequence may be that children are still concerned by how many achievements they have rather than the content of those achievements. With different rates of success, the opportunities of this system are teachers will then have a clear guide for planning, showing exactly where the gaps are in each pupil's knowledge, skills and understanding, and thus where subsequent teaching should be targeted. This could be done using such approaches as question and answer, students' observations, oral and written feedback, and peer, self and e-assessment. These approaches are no great leap from the kind of AFL approaches established in other curriculum areas, and perhaps an opportunity to extend these in ICT is in the form of blogs. Having considered these can-do statements, I can't help feeling this transition was all a futile exercise and a bit of a waste of time. We've gone from levels in an APP grid to statements that are on a progressive level. Different name, same overall concept. One exciting prospect that computing brings to assessment is the notion of adaptive comparative judgment, which is a way of quantifying the perceived quality of objects, including handwriting specimens and children's drawings, and ensuring quality control in the marking of work. In comparing two objects and deciding which one is the better of the two, however, it doesn't matter where a judge would locate the quality of the individual objects on a scale of quality. What matters is the difference in quality between the two objects. So in placing students' work on a measurement scale, the bias of individual judges is unimportant so long as they are able to perceive differences in quality based on a set of shared criteria. This eliminates subjectivity in areas like creative writing, but perhaps isn't so appropriate in maths, where the answer is either right or wrong. Another new concept, to me at least, was the technique outlined in the assessment section in the new National Curriculum in Computing that I hadn't really heard of, KWL. I was interested to learn that this is where you use lists to identify what pupils already know, what they want to learn, and subsequently what they've learned. This does link up conveniently with the removal of levels and the introduction of these can-do statements. Whilst I've yet to carry out any discrete lessons of ICT, there are still some key points that I've come to realise about the implications in my future practice, not just in computing, but across subject areas. Aspects of feedback and questioning. In terms of feedback, it's crucial to encourage and support further effort. The efficacy of questioning comes down to the questions themselves that are asked. It's important to consider open-ended questioning techniques to encourage pupils to explain and justify their approaches to solving a problem, further developing metacognition.